floor to questions again. What you said.
You were saying about the I don't know chain and how far it goes back. But actually, so if you look back centuries, we didn't know where the planets came from as such. We didn't know, we thought the explanation from the theist was that God made the planets, but then we found out gravity and particles come together. I'm not a physicist, I'm sure they understand it much better than I do. We said that God put humans on the earth, but then we found out about evolution. So actually, I'm not sure it's I don't know chain going on, more that we've disproven what you said that God created, and now it seems that the creation of the universe is the last bastion of religion as the one thing that scientists can't prove, because actually it's way beyond our human capacity to understand. I was wondering what you said about that.
Next question, Lisa,
well, I just also want to thank you guys for coming. I think everyone's not doing that. Really interesting. My question is to Hasan and the doctor. Your argument near the end of your 10-minute speeches was essentially, it's really obvious God exists. Because you were saying, rationally thinking, it must happen, right? And my question is, you're at Imperial College, we're all scientists, engineers, medics, excuse me, but we're quite intelligent people. We all think rationally on a day-to-day basis, it's our job, essentially. Why do you think that if it's such a simple question to answer, if it's just a rational question, and we're all rational people, why do you think that we don't, all of us, subscribe to the same view?
You were saying that there were a number of positions before that were that could explain the initial origins of the universe. There are a number of hypotheses that you actually forget about. I think you generalize them in the universe is eternal, but for one, there's parallel universes which collide. There's a number of ways through string theory, and you seem to gloss over that. But when you say that you'd rather not say I don't know, is it because you'd rather choose an explanation regardless of whether it's right or wrong, or whether you would prefer to get the right answer and hedge your bets?
We had a few questions, so next time, a bit more quick.
Right, I've got the question back. So anyone who gets thrown at them can keep it. Right, so what has changed since the beginning of time and what hasn't? Well, one thing that hasn't is that when you throw an apple up into the air, it will fall straight back down. The physical model, the experimental model that explains that, the gravity, the equations, yes, those have developed. But that phenomenon of reality hasn't changed. And our arguments are based on that aspect of reality. So they're consistent on that basis. Why so much emotion? Why is it that we're all intelligent people here? You've got people who are Cambridge professors. There's no doubt on intelligence. So why is it that so many intelligent people have difficulty coming to a conclusion, a consistent conclusion on this? And I would go back to what I mentioned at the beginning of my talk, which was that, look, it's an emotional, cultural environment and baggage that makes it very, very difficult to look at this topic objectively. Because these intellectuals and philosophers who developed this attack on Christianity and religion didn't do it for a laugh. They didn't do it out of insincerity. They did it because they were in an extremely difficult situation in terms of oppression by the church, in terms of their thinking, in terms of the freedom of the people. A very, very difficult situation. So their motivations, and obviously from my perspective, it was incorrect what they did, but their motivations were quite pure. They really feared the 30 Years' War and all the baggage went with it. They really feared the situation where someone can suggest that the earth goes around the sun and they're worried about being tortured or worried about being burnt at the stake. And they never wanted to have a situation where you go back to that history, that specific European history. And I'll contrast that a little bit with Islamic history, because the golden age of science in Islam was when Islam was in the ascendance. Golden age of science in Europe was when they dealt with Christianity. That's a very, very, that fear of that time is deep within the culture, it's deep within the environment. And it's that, and you can see that in the comedy shows, in films, in the ridicule that Christians are put under, the life of Brian. I don't know if anyone's seen that. These types of things, it's under constant ridicule. So I think that's an explanation as to why intelligent people find it difficult to come to a consensus. Because it's too embarrassing.
That argument works exactly the same way on the reverse. I would say that most atheists would agree with me, also being an atheist, that the only reason you believe in a God is because of your cultural, emotional, and all the other things you listed ways to bring up. And the popular argument is, if you were brought up in an atheist family, you would be standing there arguing on the other side.
Great. So the question you asked me was, why do I think that we're having such difficulty? And that's an opinion question rather than a proof question. And that's my opinion as to why we have such difficulty. If we want to get to the proofs of things, then we go back to the topics of the argument, the cosmological argument that was given. So the cosmological argument was given for an intelligent person. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. I mean, that's a familiar expression of cosmological argument to everyone, and that's what Hasan mentioned. Now, the questioner over there about parallel universes and string theory and multiverses, and I'm a big Michael Moorcock fan. I don't know if anyone's heard of him, but a sci-fi fantasy writer who brought the idea of the multiverse and parallel universes into sort of into vogue or on vogue. The problem with that is it doesn't really answer anything, does it? Because if you're looking for an explanation of the universe, and the universe is limited, and that's why you're looking for an explanation of it, if you bring a multiverse into play, it's a bit of a stretch, because these parallel universes you haven't got any sensation of. But let's say you bring a multiverse into play, you have to have rules for that multiverse. And as soon as you introduce rules for the multiverse, you have a limited entity, a limited multiverse, and you're back to square one. So it's an ultimate case of begging the question.
Just one quick thing. What you're saying, it doesn't help with the beginning of this universe. The Big Bang in our universe isn't seen as the original event, it's the earliest possible event of consequence. That is, anything that happened before it couldn't have helped. In that sense, we can't tell what the first cause could have been. So that's where we say we don't know because we can't tell.
Sure, but to restrict to that sense, I mean, I suppose it works only from one perspective, because I could say, well, I'm looking from the sense of the multiverse itself, and if we exist now and the multiverse has existed in some sense for an infinite amount of time, and I'll ask you, has it existed for an infinite amount of time, or what is your concept of time on the multiverse? And we still have the same argument, which is that if someone proposes that the multiverse has existed forever or for a certain amount of time, a time that's relevant to the multiverse, then we are now at the end of an eternity. We've reached the end of eternity.
How much time do we have left then?
Well,
we're at the end of eternity, then...
But we're not, I would contest that saying that we're at the end of eternity is a nonsensical statement. And it's nonsensical in the context of a single universe, and it's equally nonsensical in the context of a multiverse.